The Naturalis Cosmetics headquarters, nestled among the verdant valleys of Oregon, was no conventional corporate building. Constructed with sustainable materials and surrounded by lush gardens of medicinal plants, it embodied the philosophy of the company that had revolutionized the natural cosmetics market over the past 30 years. Victoria Mendez, newly promoted to CEO at 35, walked briskly through the glass-enclosed hallways. The daughter of Brazilian immigrants, she had grown up watching her mother work as a cleaner in companies where executives like her now made decisions. Every step in her career had been achieved with iron determination and sacrifices few knew. "Rebecca, have the Apex investors arrived yet?" he asked his assistant, checking his designer watch. "They're in the main meeting room, Ms. Mendez. Coffee served and presentations prepared." Victoria adjusted her perfectly tailored suit. This meeting could define the future of Naturalis. Apex Global, an international beauty conglomerate, had expressed interest in acquiring the company for $1 billion sum, and she had worked tirelessly to make it happen. Entering the meeting room, Victoria froze in the doorway. A man in his early 40s wearing worn pants, a simple shirt, and, to her horror, completely barefoot, was kneeling beside one of the ornamental pots, examining the soil. "Excuse me," she said, her tone icy and making everyone in the room turn. "Board meetings are not the time for maintenance." The man stood up slowly. He had dark, disheveled hair, a stubble on his face, and hands visibly scarred from working the land. His eyes, however, had a disconcerting clarity. "I was just checking on this dragon plant's health. It looks dehydrated," he replied calmly. Victoria felt the gaze of the 5 Apex executives, all in impeccable suits, watching the scene with barely concealed curiosity. "Our gardening team can take care of that later," he replied dryly. "We appreciate your diligence, but I must ask you to leave now. We're about to start an important meeting." One of the Apex executives raised his eyebrows, looking mildly amused. "The orchids need attention too," the man continued, seemingly oblivious to the importance of the situation. "The irrigation system is providing too much water." Victoria felt a blush creep up her neck. "Sir, I don't know how you got in here, but I must insist. Maybe we should hear what he has to say about plants," one of the investors interrupted with a British accent. "After all, Naturalis prides itself on its connection to the natural world, doesn't it?" Victoria forced a professional smile. "We certainly value our gardens, Mr. Whitmore, but we have hired experts for that. This gentleman is probably one of the temporary helpers." Turning to the man, she spoke in a tone that brooked no argument. "Please leave now. I will speak with the groundskeeper about proper protocol for maintenance." The man nodded calmly, showing no offense. "As you wish. Have a productive meeting." As he left the room, Victoria didn't notice the meaningful look he exchanged with Mr. Whitmore. She also didn't know that the barefoot gardener was Daniel Morgan, the recent heir to Naturalis and its new majority owner, who had decided to get to know his company from the ground up before officially taking over. Daniel Morgan hadn't planned on inheriting a cosmetics empire. A biologist specializing in ethnobotany, he had spent the last decade working with indigenous communities in Central America and the Amazon, documenting traditional knowledge about medicinal plants. When his aunt Eleanor Morgan, founder of Naturalis, passed away 6 months ago, her will surprised everyone. 51% of the shares went to her nephew, who had barely set foot in the United States in recent years. "She always said you had the same passion for plants as she did," explained Frederick Thompson, the family's lawyer and longtime friend, as they walked through the gardens of the Morgan mansion after the funeral. Eleanor believed Naturalis was losing its essence, becoming just another corporation. Daniel looked at the vast property that was now partly his. "I don't know anything about running a business, Fred. I spend my days in the forest, talking to traditional healers, not in boardrooms." "That's exactly why she chose you," the lawyer smiled. "Naturalis started in her kitchen, blending herbs that grew in this very garden. In recent years, with international expansion, Eleanor feared that traditional knowledge and true sustainability were being replaced by superficial green marketing. The idea of working incognito came about during a long night of talking with Frederick about how to get to know the company without the interference of expectations or flattery. "You have 6 months before the will is fully executed," the lawyer explained. "In that time, only the council knows about the estate, and they agreed to your unconventional approach." Now, 3 weeks later, as he walked out of the meeting room under the CEO's disdainful gaze, Daniel reflected on the meeting. Victoria Mendez was exactly as the preliminary reports described her. Extremely competent, results-oriented, but with little connection to the company's original philosophy. "What was your first encounter with our new CEO like?" asked Whitmore, one of the few board members who knew his true identity, meeting him later in the gardens. Daniel smiled, pulling weeds around a lavender patch. "Effective in getting me out of the room, less effective in realizing the Drakena is actually dying, as are several of the company's core values, apparently. Victoria is brilliant with numbers and market strategy," Whitmore said. "Under her leadership as COO, our profit margins increased 22%. And how many of my aunt's original formulations were altered to achieve these numbers?" Daniel asked, examining a sheet of paper. "How many local suppliers were replaced with cheaper alternatives?" "Business is business, Daniel. Naturalis is now a global company." "That's precisely what I want to find out," he replied, standing up and brushing the dirt from his hands. "Whether we're still a company with a mission, or just another corporation disguised as green." As he walked toward the experimental greenhouses, Daniel watched Victoria through a window, conducting her meeting with precision and confidence. There was something familiar about her determination, an intensity he recognized in people who had fought hard for what they had. 6 months, he muttered to himself. "Let's see what really grows in the Naturalis gardens." Victoria Mendez stared at the wall of awards and certifications in her office as she awaited her international call with the CEO of Apex Global. Each trophy represented a step in her meticulously planned climb since joining Naturalis as a finance intern 12 years ago. "Connection established, Ms. Mendez," Rebecca announced over the intercom. "Victoria, I received excellent feedback on our preliminary meeting." Malcolm Pierce's voice boomed over the loudspeaker in his distinctive British accent. "Whitmore was particularly impressed with your presentation on international expansion." "Thank you, Malcolm. We're excited about the possibilities of this partnership. There's just one issue we need to clarify before we move forward. I understand Eleanor Morgan left the company to a nephew? Any chance he'd interfere with the takeover?" Victoria adjusted her seat. The mysterious nephew was a delicate matter, a variable she couldn't control. "Daniel Morgan has little interest in the business," he replied, repeating what the board had told him. "He's some kind of researcher who spends time in rainforests. The board has assured him that he won't oppose the sale, as long as certain sustainability guidelines are maintained." "Great, because between us, Victoria, we see enormous potential for optimization in Naturalis' operations. Some of the current practices are admirable, but commercially inefficient." Victoria knew exactly what he meant. Naturalis maintained fair trade relationships with small producers, paid above market prices, and invested in environmental conservation, practices that affected profit margins. "I agree there is room for rationalization," he replied carefully. After finishing the call, Victoria devoted the afternoon to a detailed inspection of the facilities, something she rarely did, preferring to analyze reports. She needed to ensure everything was spotless for Apex's next visit. In the research and development lab, he found a team excitedly gathered around a table where various samples were being analyzed. "What's new?" he asked, surprising everyone with his unusual presence there. Dr. Sophia Lin, Chief Scientific Officer, beamed with excitement. "A fascinating development. The new gardener brought in a variety of mugwort we'd never seen before. Its anti-inflammatory properties are extraordinary." Victoria frowned. "Gardener? The barefoot man from the meeting room?" "Yes, Daniel. He has incredible knowledge of medicinal plants. He's apparently worked with traditional communities around the world." Victoria watched the scientists, all with multiple degrees and years of research, listen intently to the explanations of a gardener with no formal credentials. "Dr. Lin, we need to stay focused on the approved projects," he interrupted. "Apex expects to see specific progress on the premium line during your next visit." The team's enthusiasm visibly waned. Sophia adjusted her glasses, clearly disappointed. "Of course, Victoria. But I believe this discovery could... We can explore botanical curiosities after we secure the company's future," Victoria cut in. "Please send a report detailing the status of all major projects by the end of the day." As she left, Victoria couldn't help but glance back and see Daniel chatting animatedly with the team. Something about the scene deeply bothered her. Not just the informality, but the genuine passion she rarely saw in the quarterly reports that filled her days. "Rebecca," he called as he returned to his office, "find out more about this new gardener, Daniel. I want to know exactly who he is and why he's having so much influence with our scientific team." The annual Ashland Medicinal Plant Festival was a tradition in Southern Oregon. Originally a small community fair, it had grown into a significant event, largely due to Naturalis' sponsorship over the years. Victoria had never fully understood the marketing department's insistence on maintaining this commitment to a celebration she considered outdated and limited in scope. "It's been a tradition since Eleanor founded the company," the marketing director had explained when she questioned the investment. "Much of our credibility with conscious consumers comes from these community connections." So on a sunny Saturday in May, Victoria found herself strolling among stalls selling homemade herbs, tinctures, and salves, exchanging polite smiles with local producers. Dressed in casual attire that still cost more than many attendees earned in a month, she felt out of place among the modern hippies and families who populated the festival. "Ms. Mendez," a young marketing employee approached excitedly. "The opening ceremony will begin soon. Would you like to join the other executives in the VIP area?" Victoria nodded, following her through the crowd. As they passed a large circular tent, she noticed an unusual gathering. Dozens of people, including several respectable-looking elderly men, many wearing traditional Native American clothing, were gathered in a semicircle. "What's going on over there?" he asked. "Oh, it's the Knowledge Wheel," the young woman explained. "Tribal elders and herbalists share stories about medicinal plants. It's always one of the most popular attractions." Curious, Victoria moved close enough to see who was in the center of the circle. To her surprise, there was Daniel, the barefoot gardener, sitting naturally among the elders, contributing to the discussion with evident knowledge and respect. "That's our gardener," she commented, perplexed. The employee looked confused. "Daniel? He's not just a gardener. He's an internationally respected ethnobotanist. He's worked with tribes in South America and Asia, documenting traditional knowledge about medicinal plants. Many indigenous communities consider him a guardian of wisdom." Victoria watched with growing intrigue as Daniel explained in detail the properties of a small, unimpressive plant. His delivery bore none of the insecurity of a subordinate. On the contrary, it carried the quiet confidence of someone deeply knowledgeable in their field. "And this is how the Kalapuya traditionally used this plant for treatments that Western science is only now beginning to understand," he concluded, receiving respectful nods from the elders around him. An elderly woman from the local tribe touched Daniel's arm reverently. "Few young people today dedicate themselves to preserving this knowledge. Your mentor would be proud." Victoria watched for a few more minutes before heading to the VIP area. During the opening ceremony, where she delivered a rehearsed speech about Naturalis' commitment to sustainable traditions, her eyes kept returning to the tent, where Daniel was now showing a group of children how to identify medicinal plants. Later, as he was returning to his car, he passed the tent again, now nearly empty except for Daniel and a few elders sharing tea. "Ms. Mendez," he greeted her cordially, as if their previous encounter had never happened. "Would you like to try it? It's an infusion of herbs that only bloom in this region once a year." Something about the simplicity of the invitation made her pause. "You seem to know a lot about plants for a gardener," Daniel smiled. "And you seem to know a lot about business for someone so young." The answer, delivered without arrogance, caught her off guard. For a moment, Victoria considered accepting the tea, sitting down, and perhaps learning more about this enigmatic man who was clearly more than he seemed. "Maybe another time," he finally replied. "I have a video conference in an hour." As she drove back, Victoria couldn't stop thinking about the respect the elders showed Daniel, a kind of respect that his executive position and all his professional achievements had never afforded him. Naturalis' crisis room was in full swing. Victoria had canceled all her appointments after receiving the news. The Mediterranean's leading supplier of essential oils had suffered a catastrophic crop failure due to extreme weather conditions. Without these ingredients, the entire premium line would be affected, just when they needed to impress Apex. "We've already contacted alternative suppliers," the supply director said, showing slides with alarming charts. "But their prices are 40% higher and the quality is inconsistent." Victoria massaged her temples. "What about reformulation? Can we substitute more readily available ingredients?" Dr. Sophia Lin shook her head. "It would take months to test new formulas. The premium line is specifically valued for these Mediterranean ingredients." "Then we're out of options," Victoria concluded, feeling the weight of responsibility. The Apex acquisition depended on demonstrating operational stability, and this was exactly the kind of crisis that could drive investors away. A light knock on the door interrupted the discussion. Daniel entered carrying a watering can. "Sorry," he said, sounding genuinely surprised by the meeting. "I just came to check the plans." Victoria was about to dismiss him when Sophia spoke up. "Daniel, we're having a problem with the supply of Mediterranean essential oils. The entire harvest has been lost." To Victoria's surprise, Daniel put the watering can aside and approached the table, examining the reports with interest. "Lavender, rosemary, and bergamot, correct?" he asked, studying the specifications. "Mainly used for their terpenes and anti-inflammatory properties." Dr. Lin nodded, impressed. "Exactly. May I make a suggestion?" Daniel looked directly at Victoria, as if asking for permission. She hesitated, aware of the curious glances around the table. "Go ahead. There are Native American analogs that have similar chemical profiles," he explained, pointing to the listed components. "Plants like the mugwort I showed the lab last week, combined with white sage from the Oregon mountains and a specific variety of mint cultivated by local tribes." Sophia looked intrigued. "Theoretically possible, but we'd need samples for testing and a reliable long-term supply source." "I can provide samples by tomorrow," Daniel offered. "As for sourcing, I know local indigenous communities that cultivate these plants using traditional techniques. It would be an opportunity to create a truly sustainable and regional supply chain." The CFO intervened. "Even if it worked chemically, we'd have marketing issues. Our premium line is marketed as inspired by Mediterranean traditions." Victoria, who had been watching the interaction closely, surprised everyone. "What if we create a complementary line? Native essences or something similar promoting Native American wisdom?" The room fell silent. It was rare for Victoria to propose anything that wasn't part of her carefully crafted strategic plans. "That could work," the marketing director admitted slowly. "We have research showing growing consumer interest in Native American ingredients, especially when there's authenticity and cultural respect." Victoria turned to Daniel. "Can you get those samples quickly?" He nodded. "Some are already in the experimental gardens. I can harvest them today." "Dr. Lin, I want your team working on this as a priority. If these alternatives are viable, we need working prototypes within a week." As everyone mobilized with new purpose, Victoria noticed something unusual in herself: genuine excitement. Not just for the potential solution to the crisis, but for the idea itself, something that connected business, sustainability, and cultural respect in a way she hadn't considered before. "Mr. Daniel," she called as he was leaving, "I appreciate the input. It seems we have more to learn from our gardener than we expected." The smile he offered in response held something Victoria couldn't quite decipher, a mixture of satisfaction and patience, like someone watching a carefully crafted plan unfold exactly as predicted. The rain fell relentlessly as Victoria's SUV wound its way along the winding road leading to the small Indian reservation in the mountains. Beside him in the passenger seat, Daniel studied an old map, occasionally giving directions. "Turn left at the next intersection. The road is not on the GPS." Victoria tightened her grip on the steering wheel. This excursion hadn't been in her plans. However, when initial tests with native plants showed promising results, the need to ensure a reliable supply became urgent. Daniel had suggested a personal visit to the Klamath community, where some of the rarest herbs grew. "Couldn't you have sent someone from the purchasing department?" Victoria asked, as the car jolted over a particularly bumpy section. "Relationships with indigenous communities are based on respect and trust," Daniel replied. "They expect to know the decision-makers personally." The storm suddenly intensified. Gusts of wind shook the vehicle, and visibility became dangerously low. "We should stop," Victoria decided, as a branch fell near the car. "Is there anywhere safe nearby?" "About a kilometer away, there's an old ranger station," Daniel pointed out. "We can shelter there until the storm passes." The cabin was rustic but solid. While Daniel lit a fire in the fireplace, Victoria tried in vain to get a cell phone signal. "No luck," he sighed, putting the device away. "How long do you think we'll be stuck here?" "These mountain storms usually pass in a few hours," he replied, calmly arranging firewood. "Or maybe by tomorrow. Nature follows its own schedule." The idea of spending the night isolated in a cabin with a staff member was professionally inappropriate, but Victoria had no other options. She watched Daniel move confidently through the rustic space, lighting antique candles, checking supplies. "You seem comfortable with all of this," he commented, gesturing to the pristine surroundings. Daniel smiled. "I've spent more nights in cabins and tents than in luxury hotels." In the Amazon, I'd spend weeks in villages without electricity. The fire crackled now, creating a cozy circle of light. Daniel found some dried herbs in a cupboard and began brewing tea in an old kettle. "How does someone with your knowledge end up as a gardener?" Victoria asked finally, curiosity overcoming her usual professional detachment. "How did someone who clearly values status end up selling face creams?" He retorted with a gentle smile that softened the provocation. Victoria was surprised by this insight. "It's not just about face creams, it's about building something meaningful, proving that I can..." She stopped, realizing she was revealing more than she intended. "Prove what?" Daniel asked, offering him a steaming mug. Victoria accepted the tea, inhaling its complex, comforting aroma. "That I am more than the circumstances of my birth, I suppose. My mother cleaned the office of people like me today. I promised myself that no one would ever again look at me as disposable." The silence that followed was not uncomfortable, but contemplative. The crackling of the fireplace and the roar of the storm created an almost timeless atmosphere. "Did you know that most of the plants we consider weeds are actually extremely useful?" Daniel finally spoke. "They grow in harsh conditions, are resilient and adaptable. Many have powerful medicinal properties. People pull them out of their gardens because they don't fit into their idea of how things should be." Victoria realized he wasn't really talking about plants. "Is that why you work with indigenous communities? They value what others discard?" "Partly," he agreed, "but also because I believe that real value doesn't come from titles or positions. It comes from knowledge that improves lives, from relationships based on mutual respect." Victoria felt something thaw inside her, a tension she had carried for so long she had forgotten what it was like to exist without it. "This tea," she commented, surprisingly relaxed despite the situation. "It's extraordinary. A traditional Klamath storm blend," Daniel explained. "It's said to calm not only the body, but the storms within us." As the evening wore on and the conversation flowed, Victoria realized she was talking like she hadn't in years. No agenda, no calculated professional goals. Just two people sharing stories as the storm raged outside. "Ms. Mendes, I found those historical files you requested," Rebecca announced, placing an old box on the table. "They were in the basement document vault. Apparently, no one has looked at them in years." Victoria thanked him, waiting for her assistant to leave before opening the dusty box. Ever since the night in the cabin 2 weeks ago, a sense of unease had been gnawing at her. The Native Essences line was progressing surprisingly well, with promising lab results, but that wasn't what occupied her thoughts. It was Daniel, or more precisely, the inconsistencies about him. A gardener with an encyclopedic knowledge of botany and business. Respected by indigenous communities who were normally wary of outsiders, able to navigate with equal ease between tribal elders and PhD scientists. And there was something else, something in the way some of the older employees looked at him, with a mixture of curiosity and recognition. The box contained old Naturalis documents, annual reports, newspaper clippings, photographs. Victoria searched methodically, starting with the most recent files and working backward. 3 hours later, almost giving up, he found it. A yellowed clipping from the local newspaper, dated 25 years ago. The headline read, "Eleanor Morgan expands family business with new line of natural products." The photograph showed a smiling middle-aged woman standing next to a child of approximately 12. The caption read, "Eleanor Morgan with nephew Daniel during the annual herb harvest." Victoria felt a tingling sensation on the back of her neck. Picking up her tablet, she quickly typed, "Daniel Morgan Ethnobotany." The results confirmed his suspicions. Academic articles, mentions in publications on traditional medicine, photographs of expeditions in the Amazon and Southeast Asia, and, most revealing, a 3-year-old interview in which Daniel Morgan mentioned his aunt, Eleanor, as his inspiration for studying medicinal plants. "Daniel Morgan," Victoria murmured, the pieces falling into place. "Eleanor Morgan's nephew, the new owner of Naturalis." The realization was like a punch in the gut. She had rudely dismissed the company owner, treating him like an insignificant employee. The humiliation stung, but it also raised a crucial question. Why had he maintained the disguise? Victoria stood up abruptly, determined to confront him immediately, but stopped. Daniel's behavior, she now realized, wasn't that of someone waiting to expose or humiliate her. On the contrary, since the initial incident, he had consistently offered valuable insights, helped at critical moments, and most importantly, shown respect for everyone in the company, regardless of their position. The difference with his own behavior could not be clearer. Sitting back down, Victoria reconsidered her approach. If Daniel had wanted to, he could have fired her on day one. Instead, he chose to observe, learn, and contribute. There was a lesson there that she was only just beginning to grasp. At that moment, his phone rang. It was Malcolm Pierce from Apex. "Victoria, excellent news. Our due diligence team has completed their review and we are ready to accelerate the acquisition. We can have everything finalized in 3 weeks." "That's great," he replied automatically, though a new hesitation crept into his mind. "We just need final approval from that nephew. Did he sign the preliminary documents?" "We're still finalizing some details with him," he replied cautiously. "Well, fix this quickly. Our team has discovered several operational inefficiencies. Frankly, we plan to move most of our production to our Asian facilities. We'll keep marketing in the US, of course. The American family business story has shelf value." Victoria felt a chill run down her spine. "What about the current employees?" "Unfortunately, significant reductions will be necessary. But you needn't worry. We have an excellent position reserved for you at our London headquarters." When she hung up, Victoria remained motionless, staring at the photograph of young Daniel with his aunt. Apex wasn't interested in Naturalis's legacy, its traditional knowledge, or the communities that depended on it. It was just another acquisition to spin off and optimize. Exactly what she had been enthusiastically advocating for until a few weeks ago. Naturalis's experimental gardens were the true heart of the company, though few executives visited them. Neat rows of medicinal plants grew under the watchful eye of gardeners and scientists testing new varieties. Victoria walked purposefully between the beds, ignoring the surprised looks of employees. He found Daniel crouched beside a patch of sagebrush, carefully collecting leaves for testing the new product line. "Mr. Morgan," she said, watching him freeze momentarily before standing to face her. "Or would you prefer I continue calling you Gardener?" His eyes locked with hers, assessing. "So you found out," he replied simply, without denying it or looking disturbed. "Why the charade?" Victoria asked, keeping her voice low so as not to attract attention. "What was the point of letting me treat you like a disposable employee?" Daniel placed the harvested herbs in a small basket before answering. "It wasn't about you specifically, Victoria. I wanted to understand the company from the ground up, see how people really work when they're not trying to impress the boss. You could have just told me who it was. And would you have treated me the same way? Would you have allowed me to work in the gardens, to talk freely with the employees, to learn the real dynamics of the company my aunt built?" Victoria wanted to protest, but the truth of the observation was undeniable. "Apex wants to finalize the acquisition within 3 weeks," he said instead. "They plan to dismantle much of the operation and move production to Asia." Daniel nodded, not looking surprised. "I know. I read their proposals." "You knew? And yet you let me get away with this?" Victoria felt anger rising. "While you were playing gardener, I was working to destroy everything your aunt built." "You're working toward it," Daniel corrected calmly. "Or at least you were. I'm curious if that's still what you really want." The question caught her off guard. "What I want doesn't matter. Naturalis needs capital to expand globally, and Apex offers it. A company doesn't need to grow at any cost. My aunt believed in sustainable growth connected to core values. Values don't pay bills," Victoria argued, though with less conviction than she would have a few weeks earlier. "No?" Daniel smiled slightly. "Preliminary results for the Native Essences line indicate significant market potential, and the indigenous communities we've partnered with would receive fair compensation for the knowledge we share." Victoria hesitated, remembering the genuine enthusiasm she'd felt working on this project. "Malcolm promised a position at headquarters in London," she said, more to herself than to Daniel. "The next logical step in my career." "And that's what you want? To leave behind everything you've built here to work for a corporation where you'll probably just be another interchangeable executive?" The words struck a raw nerve. For years, Victoria had focused solely on climbing the career ladder, never truly questioning her direction. Now, faced with achieving that goal, she felt an unexpected hesitation. "What do you suggest then? That I simply abandon years of work?" Daniel placed the basket of herbs on the floor between them. "I suggest we consider alternatives. Naturalis can grow without being broken up. We can expand globally while maintaining our core values and the people who made this company special. We? Victoria asked, noticing the use of the first-person plural. I need someone who understands business, Victoria. Someone with your strategic ability and determination. But I also need this person to share Naturalis's original vision, balancing profit and purpose. What he offered wasn't just a job, Victoria realized. It was a partnership, a chance to redefine her career on her own terms. Why would you trust me after how I treated you? After I actively worked to sell the company? Daniel smiled. Because I saw how you interacted with the Klamath elders. I saw your reaction when we discovered that native plants worked. And most of all, because I believe that people can grow and change just like the plants we cultivate. Victoria looked at the surrounding gardens, truly seeing them for the first time. Not as corporate assets, but as the living legacy of decades of care and respect for traditional knowledge. 3 weeks, he said finally. We have 3 weeks until Apex expects to finalize the acquisition. What do you suggest? Daniel asked, a gleam of interest in his eyes. That we work together to find a better alternative, Victoria replied, surprising herself with her own renewed determination. And that this time, I actually listen. The news that the long-awaited acquisition by Apex was under review spread quickly within Naturalis. Even more surprising was the official announcement that Daniel Morgan, the founder's nephew and current majority owner, had been working incognito at the company for months as part of his operational review. Was he the gardener? The employees asked, some laughing, others worried about how they had treated the company owner. The biggest surprise, however, was the unexpected partnership that formed between Daniel and Victoria. In the days following the revelation, the two were frequently seen together, reviewing operations, meeting with teams at all levels, and intensively developing what internal rumors called the Phoenix Plan. On a particularly crucial afternoon, they met with the full board of directors in the main conference room, now reorganized in a circular format, following the indigenous tradition of giving equal voice to all participants. Our proposal, Victoria explained, handing out detailed documents, is an organic, independent growth plan that honors Naturalis's core values while expanding our global reach, Daniel continued. Rather than selling to Apex, we will seek financing through a hybrid model that includes mission-aligned investors and an employee shared ownership program. The council members exchanged glances, some skeptical, some intrigued. And the Native Essences line will be just the beginning, Victoria continued with enthusiasm that surprised even herself. We are developing an approach that integrates traditional knowledge from diverse cultures globally, creating product lines that respect and appropriately compensate the communities of origin. Whitmore, the most senior board member, raised an eyebrow. I must confess, Victoria, that your change of perspective is unexpected. 3 months ago, you were adamant that the only viable path was a corporate acquisition. Victoria nodded, accepting the observation. I've learned some valuable lessons recently, Mr. Whitmore. Mainly that sustainable growth isn't just a marketing slogan. It's a viable business strategy when implemented with integrity. The question, the CFO interjected, is whether we can generate the capital needed for this expansion without Apex's support. We already have 3 confirmed investors, Daniel replied. Funds specializing in sustainable businesses that are willing to provide patient capital in exchange for moderate but consistent returns. The discussion lasted for hours, with detailed questions about financial projections, market strategy, and governance. In the end, the board voted unanimously to proceed with the Phoenix Plan, formally rejecting Apex's offer. When everyone left, Victoria remained seated, exhausted but strangely energized. Well, Daniel said, sitting down next to him again. Looks like we have work to do, she smiled. Quite, and only 2 weeks before the official announcement. I learned something important on my expeditions, he commented. The most resilient communities are not those that accumulate the most resources, but those that best adapt their knowledge to new circumstances without losing their essence. Victoria reflected on the transformation she had experienced, from an executive focused solely on conventional success metrics to someone who was beginning to see deeper value in human connections and shared purpose. You know what's ironic? She said. I spent my entire career trying to prove myself, thinking that meant never showing vulnerability or admitting when I was wrong. And in the end, it was admitting I didn't have all the answers that got me to where I really needed to be. Daniel studied her for a moment. True growth rarely happens in a straight line. Victoria reflected on the journey of the past few months. From sending the gardener out of the boardroom to developing a shared vision for the future with him. Like the gardener and the executive, he murmured, smiling at the image. Who knew we'd make such a good team? I suspected, Daniel confessed with a smile. From day one, even when he kicked me out of the room, I saw someone passionate about what they did. I just needed to reconnect that passion with a deeper purpose. Victoria remembered something he'd said that night in the cabin during the storm. Like those weeds that actually have powerful medicinal properties? Exactly, he agreed, a gleam of approval in his eyes. They just needed to be recognized for what they truly are. Naturalis's grand central garden had been transformed for this special occasion. Rows of chairs were arranged in concentric circles, with a small natural stage in the center where medicinal plants grew in harmonious arrangements. Shareholders, employees, local community members, and indigenous representatives mingled in an environment that, like the company itself, sought to balance professionalism with an authentic connection to nature. Victoria watched the crowd from the garden entrance, nervously checking the speech on her tablet. 3 months had passed since the formal rejection of Apex's offer and the launch of the Phoenix Plan. Today was the day of the official announcement of Naturalis's complete restructuring. Nervous? Daniel asked, approaching. Unlike his previous disguise, he now wore simple but elegant clothing, though he still preferred to go barefoot whenever possible. A little, admitted Victoria, who had also transformed her appearance, her usual stiff corporate suit replaced by a more comfortable professional ensemble, her hair less severely pinned. I never thought I'd be announcing something like this. The Phoenix Plan had evolved into an ambitious vision of corporate regeneration. Naturalis would remain independent, expand its sustainable operations, and implement an innovative governance system that included the voices of employees, indigenous communities, and environmental experts. They're ready for us, announced Rebecca, now promoted to Director of Operations after demonstrating extraordinary organizational talent during the transition. Daniel offered his arm to Victoria in a gentlemanly gesture, which she accepted with a smile. Together, they walked to center stage amidst warm applause. Welcome, Daniel began, addressing the diverse audience. Today marks not only a new chapter for Naturalis, but a return to our deepest roots and simultaneously a leap into the future. Victoria took her place at the microphone. When I joined Naturalis 12 years ago, I saw this company primarily as a vehicle for personal success. Today, I understand that we are much more, an interconnected community of people, plants, knowledge, and traditions. Over the next hour, they detailed the company's new structure. Naturalis would be reorganized as a certified B Corporation, legally committed to verifiable standards of social and environmental performance. The Native Essences line would be just the first of several initiatives based on traditional knowledge from cultures around the world, always with equal participation from the communities of origin. Leadership is also evolving, Daniel announced. I'm pleased to introduce Victoria Mendez as our new CEO, bringing her extraordinary strategic vision aligned with Naturalis's core values. The announcement was met with enthusiastic applause, especially from staff who had witnessed Victoria's transformation in recent months. And Daniel Morgan, Victoria continued, will serve as Director of Sustainability and Innovation, connecting deep ethnobotanical knowledge with market opportunities that respect people and the planet. After the formal event, while guests explored exhibits detailing the new projects, Victoria found a quiet moment beside one of the garden's oldest herb beds. I thought I'd find you here, Daniel said, approaching with 2 bowls of an aromatic drink. What is this? She asked, accepting the offer. Traditional Klamath celebration tea, to mark new beginnings. Victoria smiled, remembering how her journey with Daniel had truly begun, with her sending him out of the boardroom, unaware that he was the true owner of the company. If someone had told me 6 months ago that I would be turning down a corporate promotion in London to lead a company with a regenerative purpose, I would have laughed, he confessed. And if someone told me that the executive who kicked me out of a meeting would become my most valuable partner on this journey, I would probably be skeptical too, Daniel replied with a warm smile. Partners then? Victoria asked, extending her hand. Daniel took her gently. For business purpose and perhaps... He hesitated. Something more, in time. Victoria felt an unexpected blush creep up her neck, but she didn't remove her hand. One step at a time, Mr. Morgan. We already have a company to transform. He nodded, respecting the established boundary. Fair enough. But I must say, for someone who started out by sending the gardener away, you've learned remarkably quickly to appreciate what grows in the most unexpected places. As they watched the sun set over the gardens that symbolized both Naturalis's past and future, Victoria reflected on how the greatest transformations often begin with the most unlikely encounters, and how recognizing true value in plants or people requires looking beyond outward appearances to the inner essence that just waits for the opportunity to blossom.